Okay, so we're continuing on with the series, Can God Exist? And what I'm going to do with this one first is we're gonna go through a few different things and a few different questions, like dealing with God and everything. So the first thing I want to deal with then is, let's say we'll do some premises, and then based on those premises, we'll come to absolute conclusions that must be true if the premises are true. So we've already discovered, obviously, God is eternal. Now, really quick, if you don't believe God's eternal, which means God has no beginning or ending, if you don't believe God's eternal, then why even call it God? Why worship it? Because let's say it's not eternal, which means it's only been around for a set amount of time. And if it's only around for a set amount of time, a finite amount of time, it can only know a finite amount of things. Which means one day you will be just as intelligent as it is. And, unless you say, well, somehow it has this like infinite knowledge, though it's only been around for a set amount of time. That doesn't work out for apparent reasons. Anyway, so you will one day be what God is now if God's not eternal. So why worship it? Why worship something that you will one day be? So obviously that's why most people believe God is at least eternal. But there's certain things we can determine if it's eternal. If it's eternal, and if it doesn't have a leak in its brain, no leaky brain, that is, that it's able to retain everything that it views and understands and learns. It doesn't have a limited brain. Now, obviously it's not a brain, but you know what I mean. A limited mind, whatever you want to call it. It has an unlimited storage bank. So it's eternal, it has an unlimited storage bank. If so, these premises are true. It obviously, if it knows things, so we have to, it's not just like, that is, it's a conscious thing. So it knows things. It has consciousness. And if these three premises are true, that is, it's eternal, it doesn't, it has an infinite storage bank, and it has the ability to know things, then what can we assume? Well, not assume. What is an absolute truth based on those premises? Well, it must have then an infinite amount of information. Oops. So it must have infinite information. That's an absolute. That's a conclusion that you have to draw. You can't draw any other conclusion based on the premises. This is an absolute truth based on these premises, and these are truths that can be absolute truths that we invent based upon premises. If we invent premises, then using deductive reasoning, we can come to absolute truths. Okay, so if he's eternal, doesn't have a leaky brain, and he's able to know things, then he must know an infinite amount of things. So now we have then getting into the problems that I see. What are the problems then if God has infinite information? Well, one thing I'd like to show actually first is the idea of how then he would view time since he's eternal. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. I think I can represent it through quick drawing. So we represent time linearly. And let's say we're going to have pictures. So we're going to film a movie. And our first picture, we'll have our guy. He's like this, right? Okay, now we're going to take our second picture. Okay, first picture, third picture. So he's doing jumping jacks, and then you can repeat this picture and this picture, and he's doing jumping jacks. So this is how we perceive events. We perceive events like a movie. So if we were to play these in order, we would see a man doing jumping jacks, or doing one jumping jack. That's how we see things. So imagine this is like a film. And these are all the individual pictures that go into a movie film, and then when we watch them on the screen, we see moving action. That's how we perceive time. That's how we perceive events taking place in a logical order. However, eternal entity that exists outside of time wouldn't view it like this at all. Okay, it would just view it as events that are just happening simultaneously. Then it could put a logical order to these things and view it as we do, because it would be aware of how we view things. And so, from the human perspective, these are not all happening at the same time. They view it as happening in a sequential order. And then he can, imagine the order in which this happens. This means that if you imagine your entire lifeline as a movie, he's not seeing it like that, like we are. He's not seeing how you imagine in your memory. But he's existing outside of time, being eternal, in infinite time, all those events are just happening. You are being born right now. You are dying right now. Everything you've ever done in between is happening now, not will happen. Anyway, so you have to understand that problem with the difference in interpreting of time. And so this obviously leads us, I think, to some strange conclusions or some strange ideas about him then, or her, whatever you want to think it is. If you believe that God judges people, whether he's going to put them in some sort of hell or some sort of judgment, some sort of end result, that is you're being punished, what is he basing it off of? Here he is looking at your entire life at just one happening. It's something that's just happening. So he sees all the bad things you did, and he sees all the good things you did. Well, okay, so how does he judge you then? According to Christianity, let's say this is your life, and you have all these bad things you did, all bad, and then you finally lived your life here as good. So you did mostly bad, and this is very unbalanced, right? Obviously, the bad is going to go like this. So that's how you're balanced, right? So you should go to hell, or you should get punished. You shouldn't have like some everlasting heaven or something because you're mostly bad. But according to Christianity, this scale doesn't make sense. You can do all this bad and then do this one good thing. Oh, I accepted Jesus, and then die. And then they say the scale somehow is like this. But this is unbalanced. This weighs a lot more than this. All that bad weighs more. But hey, it doesn't matter. You somehow go to heaven. So that's just the way it is. They claim that one little act weighs more than all the bad things you could have ever done. And that doesn't make sense. So you can draw this conclusion then that, if God is going to judge us, he couldn't judge us based upon some linear fashion. Why would he? It doesn't make much sense that he would judge us on some linear fashion. Then he would have to judge us, and this is something that it seems that these religions don't believe and don't adhere to, though they believe in a God that's eternal. He'd have to judge you based on your whole life. So if you did mostly good things and a few bad things, this is your whole life, all the events you ever did, based on all the events, hey, this person's good, he gets to go to a good place. He doesn't really need to be punished. But he still should be punished for the bad things he did, right? Well, according to like Christianity and other religions, sometimes it doesn't really matter. Just automatically you get saved. It doesn't matter how much bad you did. At least Hindus have some sort of karmic problem, that they put in there. Okay, so I think that's a huge problem that we should have to deal with. Next. Okay, now some people will say, well, maybe God doesn't know everything you're going to do, so that's how, there's still a future to be had, a future still taking place. Well, again, if these premises were true, he's eternal, no leaky brain, and is capable of knowing things, then he must know an infinite amount of information. That's deductively true. So if he knows an infinite amount of information, now imagine these are books, green and red, and they continue in this forever and ever in both directions. So it continues, green, and then red, green, red, up and down forever. It's an infinite stack of books. And I said, I'm going to take out all the green books. Okay, I'm going to remove them all. How many books do I have left? Well, I have an infinite left still. Well, wait a minute. If I have an infinite stack of books going red, green, and I remove all the green books, and somehow I still have an infinite amount of books, then how many books did I remove? In other words, it's not possible to have an infinite stack of books like this, right? It's just a mental exercise, but it's not possible then to add or take away information. Because if I said I had this infinite stack of books, red, green, I go, okay, I added a blue book in there. How many books do I have now? Well, since it's an infinite stack, I still have infinite, so I can't add or take away from infinite, right? Not a true absolute infinite. So this poses a problem. If God has infinite information, which he must if these three things are true, and most people believe they are, then now you have the problem with how can God view your life in the way you do? That is, things that haven't happened yet. They're new to him. He doesn't know them yet. That is, if you're an open theist, that is, you believe that there's still things God doesn't know. Well, if these things are true, he has information, and he can't get into this weird fallacy problem. You can't add new information to God, so he can't suddenly become aware that you're doing whatever you're doing as you're doing it. He has to already know all that stuff. He has to know everything. There can't be nothing that's unknown to him if he has information, because then you're claiming you're adding information to an infinite database, and you can't do that. Just like you can't take away from it. So he wouldn't be able to forget. He wouldn't be able to to learn anything new, so there's nothing new to him. He can't be surprised. And if he can't be surprised, why does he get angry? Well, some people's gods get angry. Why? Okay, I'll have to go to part 2.